Hey guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a review of a horror film from Australia. This is in the English language, released in the year 2014, directed by Jennifer Kent, and this film is called The Babadook. So The Babadook starts off with a woman who has suffered a tragedy in her past, and she is now living with her young son. So her young son is very eccentric. He's a strange sort of kid who doesn't fit in anywhere, and he starts to have these problems. He's got one hell of an imagination, and he starts to say to his mother he's been stalked by a monster. So initially the mother just says, yeah, it's crazy talk, just, all these kids, they always see monsters, that it's just their imagination, that if he closes his eyes and he be's a good boy and he just says to himself that monsters don't exist, everything will be alright. But it seems to be getting worse. So the mother decides to spend nights with him in the same bed, and hopefully this will calm him down, but it doesn't. So he goes to school, he's getting into trouble at school, and the mother is trying really hard to sort out what's going on because, as I said, she's had a tragic past, and that's really haunting her as well. So she's got a lot on her plate, and she starts to feel really run down. So then she decides to read her son a book. Now, the book is called The Babadook. Now, The Babadook is a very morbid tale about this monster who lives in children's bedrooms, and he's in a closet, and it basically says if you don't believe in the Babadook becomes stronger, that it's always there, and when it reveals itself, you're going to get the biggest shock of your life. So this freaks out the kid. The kid starts going off, and he's uncontrollable. So the mother closes the book, throws it away, wants nothing more to do with it. But this is where strange things start to happen inside the house, and she starts to believe that maybe she has unleashed the Babadook. But she says, that's crazy talk, and so the Babadook book keeps on showing up. So she gets freaked out by this, so she ends up burning the book. But this is where things intensify, and she remembers the passage of the book where it says, if you don't believe in the Babadook becomes stronger. So she believes that this is the case, but everyone around her thinks that she is just nuts. So whether or not the Babadook is after her, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on the Babadook. Going into this one, this was a cinematic experience, so already I was really hyped up about it. It's not often that Australian horror films make it to the cinemas in Australia. It's more so with American horror films. So whenever an Australian horror film comes along, I really want to support it, and I really wanted to love the Babadook. And I did. I actually thought this was a really, really good film. Unfortunately, it should have been a lot better than it was because there were a few problems with it, but overall, I was really happy with what I got. It's a very spooky film, and it's so much more than just a horror film. I actually thought that this is a very humane drama. It's a movie about a woman and her young child, and she's doing her best to make their lives better. But the overall pressures of life is just forcing her down, and you feel so sorry for her when she becomes exhausted. You become exhausted because of the way that you absorb your attention inside the characters, and that's the reason why it works so much, because the little kid and the mother, you just invest so much time in them, and you kind of forget in patches that it is a horror film. And that's not a bad thing. Usually it is a bad thing for a horror film if you're forgetting it's a horror film, but in this case, you're being really spooked out, but at the same time, you're just absorbed in the lives of these characters. So in some instances, it is a family drama, but on the other hand, it is also a horror film. And the horror element doesn't overtake the drama, and the drama element doesn't overtake the horror. So it's finely blended, and it shows you how good Jennifer Kent is in this genre. So it's so much more than just a stereotypical horror film, a generic horror film. After seeing a trailer, you might think to yourself that you know where this film is going to go, but don't think that, because I thought that my initial my initial thoughts in the film were changed drastically towards the end. I thought the end was really good, although the way it finished was a little bit of a problem for me. But the last quarter of the film was really good, and it really amps up the horror aspect of it. So I really liked that. It reminded me of Spanish horror films, such as The Orphanage. The Orphanage had very dull colouring, but at the same time it was very vivid, and it felt like you're almost in a fantasy dreamland. So if you like the films like Orphanage and Julia's Eyes, I would highly recommend you check out The Babadook, because it's done in a very strange way. As I said, the colours are done so it feels like it's a caricature. It's sort of like you're feeling the nightmare that this woman and son are feeling. So that it does translate through the screen very, very well. So cinematography is absolutely excellent. There are a few shots in the film that were very, very haunting. There are no jump scares, which is something I really liked. In fact, I can count one jump scare. And that, in these days, with the paranormal activities, it's all about the loud bang, bang, bang. You're startled, and it's I've heard that being referred to as the I think it was cattle prod, where you prod someone and they jump, and that's basically you're scared. And then it stops, and then you jump again. But this movie, it just has a really solid sort of underlying horror element throughout the whole entire film. So you feel very uneasy, and you feel that this is a movie, and it captures the thought of a nightmare. And so the cinematography was surprisingly very strong, and it plays a huge impact into the story. The script was decent, and I thought the acting was very good. Now, to start off with, I hated the kid, but the kid does, grow on you, and by the end of it, you feel exhausted for this kid, and you want this kid to get the help that he needs. And then same with the mother as well. They start off as annoying, but the beauty of it is, as it goes along, it gets deeper and deeper. The characters are very well drawn out, and that is the best part of the film. The fact you invest your time in the characters, therefore you feel the threat that is around them. I love the Babadook. I don't think it is a story, a myth or anything. I think that this Babadook was made up for the film, and I thought it had a lot of imagination behind it. I love the fact that you don't see it too often. It plays a lot to your imagination, which I think is even better, because if you don't see something, you can't put a face to it. So if you can't put a face to it, your imagination is constantly running, and you magnify it to be such a bigger threat than what it would be if you could actually see it properly. So if you like films that are very subtle, that play on your imagination a lot, and that will leave it up to interpretation by the end of it, then I would highly recommend you check out this film. It surprised me. My only problem with it was that I felt it didn't know how to end it. If it ended it about 10 minutes earlier, it would have been absolutely perfect, but I thought that Jennifer Kent goes on a little bit too long. And by the end of it, you think to yourself, well, that was a great movie, but it should have been a hell of a lot better, because if they cut out the last 10 minutes, they ended it slightly different, it would have been a masterpiece. But having said that, it's not a massive negative to the film. As far as Australian horrors are concerned, this is the best one to come out in a long time, and it's one that I would highly recommend. So overall, for the Babadook, I'm going to give it 4 stars. I was really impressed, and I'm sure a lot of you out there will be as well. Alright guys, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.